spellings.
CU's in no hurry will write out the whole thing here as well. So in terms of fantasy ideologies, I'm fairly closely aligned to Chaos Undivided. The gods are representations of different archetypical concepts of good, that in the universe are of perverse nature due to the perverse nature of the universe's inhabitants. But as I have no CU's in no hurry will write out the whole thing here as well. So in terms of fantasy ideologies, I'm fairly closely aligned to Chaos Undivided. The gods are representations of different archetypical concepts of good, that in the universe are of perverse nature due to the perverse nature of the universe's inhabitants. But as I have no defined idea of what is best or where to go, I cannot pick a divided, or singular, attitude. I do however know that when presented with either Chaos, or Emperor in 40k, I'll choose the greater good in terms of Chaos Undivided in a society of rationalism that manages to dismantle the powers used on and by you into chemical representations and physical understanding. In other words, channel chaos into a jar and let scientists study it in a non-warp-based society. Tau is dangerous, but as life as a homeless drug addict goes, not the worst. So first part in learning Chaos Undivided, for me was in learning old health, everything that the field offers in terms of positive or health-boosting attributes to others. Then I used those to try to do spiritual harm here and there to others who studied it with their permission in MMA style, battles of thought. It turned out that we can in fact influence others with concentrated energy. In simple form, magic was real, but I did not know how. After years of study I've come to the conclusion that there is a cloud of RNA we call pheromones floating around us at all times, and when you find another strain of RNA they form strands of DNA and form a united thought with someone else. So you have a cloud of thoughts that your third eye can see, and you get a sense of what the other person is like based on those smells. Calling it third eye was mythological. Calling it the nose is much more apartment. Similar inventions I came across rather consistently, but I must admit, the corrupting effect of chaos is evident in my actions. I participated in political parties named after change. I felt a deep urge to push forward so much that when I was walking around outside for joy, I walked so much that my toenails peeled off. So that's a lot. All the chaos gods were evident in their form and took joy in playing with me. But through all the god emperor, in her embryonic form, a thought of what is so good in good that then can maintain such a dominion over the galaxy, and not be considered by those under it. A monster. I struggled to find good. What is it truly that drives the world of good forward? For it was not in anything I could see. Far as I could see in the domain of the public world, what was driving it was greed and corruption. And crime. So, at moments it was Lord of Change, at times it was anger, at times it was pure perversion that drove me forward, but my aim was never to seek chaos other than to put it in a jar. Art in a jar, Martin. So the temptations of this particular or that particular god were seen as oppressive. I had not picked who I am. I was, after all, shattered, and as such it was seen as telemarketing by the chaos gods, not something I took well. But when I needed more energy, more wisdom, cunning, or other similar attributes, they were there in ample amounts and the results were astonishing and superhuman. But, as I said, through it all, there was an embryo of a greater being, a God Emperor, that which says that through all this, goodness and humanity will persevere, though at first It seemed like it was one aspect of my many shattered selves that was talking in terms of good and the drive forward. It was not. Slowly I started to have arguments with myself, and the singular thought of it's all good became a driving force. The struggle internally to understand the change had begun, and I was not participating. For me, the struggle to unite my shattered self was long gone and uninteresting at that point. Many aspects had been born as children or people I knew around me, and I realized that the shattered self was going to have each shard incarnate on its own and play in the wild rather than seek to unify. What will be left behind will be content with its body as the body it is in. I also noticed biological changes, such what I can only term the activity of something residing in me in specific parts that is greater than me, but still an offspring of me. An aspect of the shattered self that picks specific points to inhabit depending on its preference. A drive forward might, for example, think of itself in terms of the legs. A calm, relaxed vampire cat might think of itself lying down in a hammock in the other half of my brain. The struggle had left me a decade ago, but while others were still struggling inside me, through me, I was noticing that the spirit of calm, true humanity was becoming its own, and it wasn't incarnating through the world, but to above the world.
So that's the introduction to this video. So as I said, I have a pretty strong affinity for Chaos Undivided because I grew up in a society where rules were pretty evident. So my interest in seeing an alternative to the society that I saw as being evil or corrupt was to seek the alternative. The alternative was essentially chaos, perhaps something new, which is why as a youngster, as I said in the previous video, living under socialism, and don't tell me that Finland during the Cold War wasn't socialism, starting to get basic aspects of market economy, but we're still very heavily socialist country. And I used to watch like TV shows of Amerikan maa on suuri maa, se vapauttaa haluaa. Tehkäämme siitä maailman suurempi kuin unelmaa. Ja sillä shows about how America is a great country and we need to make it into a land greater than dream and so on and so forth. French shows that were like super pro-American. So for me, living in an order-based society, which was seen to be the current order of the European and Eurasian continent, for me, living under socialism, which was basically half of Europe all the way down to Indochina. So, Eurasian continent. And the promise of the other world was America, or in terms of science fantasy fiction, Chaos Undivided. And because America is actually far closer to the God Emperor than Chaos Undivided in terms of its moral value, I was actually studying as somebody living under Chaos Undivided or greater good, what the God Emperor believes. So what I was seeing in terms of chaos was a very in bottle contained activity, because I was studying it in the US, which is the God Emperor as well. In terms of its like open moral values, religion and such. Europe and especially East Asia Asia being seen as more perverse. And even the Swedes consider the Finns Asian, so I'm not going to make the point. So that's what I was living under. So I was studying Chaos Undivided, and of all the possibilities that the field offered, the safest and most interesting to me was specifically the ability to benefit the health of others with thought. Like, how can you change your thought patterns so that they benefit the health of others? That was my main point of interest. I studied it for around a decade. With another student, we occasionally also practiced how to focus the thought into harming others. We got some results, not much, but because learning healing isn't conducive to doing damage. So the results were minor, but we did see some results. We concluded that yes, indeed, it actually works. So then it took me a long time to figure out why it works. I mean, I can think of why giving somebody a massage with warm hands makes them feel better, And I can understand concepts like that, but why does the spiritual side of it work? Why, if I'm holding my hand on a patient and thinking in terms of the energy and good, they report a sense of warmth and well-being. If I start to intensely focus on a sense of harming the patient, they start to report nasty thoughts. So why? Why does the thought behind the healer's action actually affect the world? It's not just hearsay, it's actually physical, noticeable reality. So it took me a long time to figure out why it works like that. But my current understanding is that when we think, there's actually a cloud of pheromones around us, which are strands of RNA. And when two of those strands connect, you think you have a running thought, a thought that builds itself. That's when it turns into DNA. And if it's a long thought, it manifests itself. And depending on how healthy it is, the base of its manifestation can be seen as the first density in the raw model on the reality. And depending on how vibrant it is also on the higher densities. And this process is how organisms breed. The physical aspect of DNA exchange, the fluid exchange, is a very minor part of the process. It is what you're supposed to focus on to keep the actual people able to do the thinking part. The animals are supposed to focus on the fluid exchange. The actual thinkers are supposed to have 1,000 kids during their lifetime. That's what I figured out about the system. So pheromones was basically the third eye. And then I realized a lot of these stories are funnily to the point, but you don't get them unless you really think of them in terms of what you see in the physical world. I don't see a third eye, I see a nose. So it's pheromones. And many of these stories make sense when you dismantle them into hardcore scientific phenomena being described as a folk tale. They make sense. So, like the story of the Finnish story of the like round device that you turn with a crank and produces anything you want, which is basically the mass producer thing from Star Trek, is just their way of seeing reality develop, and eventually the development will be that one device will produce everything because they're seeing more devices that produce two results at the same time. So they're just going to the singularity of one device will produce everything. And if you see those attempts by the primitive cultures to reach a singularity in their thought, you see the timeless in their culture. And it becomes pretty evident that they're pretty smart. They don't know as much minutia about the universe like atoms that we do, but it's like saying the average socially inept scientist is better at managing their world than the guy who works 8 hours like a day in their own company and makes $50 an hour. It's like saying something of that value, and it's not true. It's not possible to say which is better, because that is what we learned during the Second World War, which is why I really like that topic. Answered so many ethical questions about what's right in humanity. As wars go, it's not just which kingdom is better than the other kingdom. It had the actual will racism win if it has the military advantage. It didn't. the guy who's best at administrating their region to produce the largest amount of resources quickly won. And the only way to measure that is how many natural resources you have left. How quickly can you turn the sunshine into energy with what you have? Second World War ends in a large ball of sunshine. It's the energy war. Reality is we don't need racism, we have infinite energy. See, here's your ball of infinite energy. Do you want another? Then they would just, wow, infinite energy. Somebody noticed, cancer. And then they all stopped. But that's another topic. Took a while. The engine was going pretty hard. So now we're thinking about other stuff than infinite energy. It's been solved. So Chaos Undivided. It was my solution to being in a corrupt society. And I thought I was studying Chaos Undivided, but turns out due to the political nature that I was actually studying the Emperor. And when we got results where the chaos gods were actually influencing me, I was very strongly apprehensive. I didn't enjoy the experience. I did notice them influencing me at specific points, like many spirits and thoughts around me, but their energy was not pleasant to me. And I've had several therapeutic discussions with other chaos worshippers, and their general consensus is that while some of them are justified in remaining in the path of chaos, for me, it is not a good choice, because for me, being on the path of chaos would be the same as being on the path of capitalism. There would be infinite growth until you're the best, and then you're supposed to be the best of chaos, but it isn't a core attribute to me. I've been seeking to rebuild my shattered self. So for me, seeking to expand my shattered self instead of being content that it's shattered is counterproductive. I don't want to breed more than is necessary to maintain my form. So it feels inappropriate. And the demons in these group therapeutic sessions have noted that chaos is not the answer for me. They don't know if it's the God Emperor specifically, but they recommend searching more for it than chaos. And this comes from an actual demon group therapy session where we discuss these things from a point of view of chaos worshippers. Some of them distinctly will continue to benefit from continuing with chaos, but they noted that I would not. See, were I to become the best of chaos, say the strongest chaos god of Chaos Undivided, I would be by that role required to represent chaos, which to me represents madness. And it doesn't feel like I would be at my core purpose focusing entirely on madness. While madness has a role in reality, it's not the core role of reality, and I don't see myself as benefiting from it. So I would agree with the consensus of the demon therapy session. I would agree with it. I did a deep meditation to the state, and it took me about an hour. It was a very, very good experience. I have one specific meditation pattern for contacting chaos that I can actually recommend, and it works wonders. Now, tune off until 21 minutes if you don't want to hear it. The method is get very, 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 very tired. Like you're about to fall asleep, but you can maybe do 5 more minutes. You're not like immediately falling asleep, but you're very sleepy. Lie down in a comfortable bed or very comfortable position. Preferably lie down unless you sleep a lot sitting. Listen to bass music very, very, very loud on your earphones and try to sleep. and you will get very interesting results. You will not be able to sleep, but you will get very interesting results. Get to the point with the loudness that you cannot fall asleep, but you almost can fall asleep. And don't do it too long, it'll damage your ears. And we're back. There we go. The method has been explained. It will produce interesting results, but moving on. So eventually what I thought was my drive towards goodness, my human nature, my humanity, what I thought was my humanity turned out to be a superego of humanity. So something that was not my humanity, nor perhaps God, but perhaps the Warhammer God Emperor's love for humanity could be described as a similar phenomena. And while most of these attributes that I had chose to incarnate into the physical world, they chose to take on a singular host body which describes their phenomena and react negatively to others trying to usurp that phenomena. And what we've seen is the phenomena that I thought to be my humanity become a super voice of humanity. And that has become a separate phenomena which has incarnated above humanity. So what I term to in space. And I've been looking for ways to describe this. And while the God Emperor is understood in mythos publicly may not be it, the God Emperor of the mythos in 2000 AD might be it. So it's a very singular fantasy type voice that immediately recognizes it comes from a fantasy god, and thus is only applicable if that fantasy is your fantasy. But as long as that fantasy is your fantasy, it is that fantasy's god. And it's not specifically aligning with any fantasy such as Warhammer, but it is very accustomed to talking as the God Emperor of Warhammer, but has made it clear it is not that being. It is sort of like an imperial cleric who believes in that being and is talking with the permission of the church as representing that being. It's hard to describe, but that is roughly what it feels like. The phone lit up and I thought it was a message, but it was an ad from the food place I occasionally order. I hate ads. I'm thinking of a policy that if any company sends me ads at any point, I will immediately discontinue practice with them if they start sending me ads. Any kinds of ads, I'm getting a very distinct no reaction. So that's my rough reaction to the Chaos gods as well. I mean, I understand them, but to be fair, as much as any human could, but to be fair, no. I will take dips in their realms, preferably at points, but I will leave it at that. If there is specifically something somebody asks me to do and I see a benefit to the greater good with it, I might do it. And there are times when I want to hone my training in the realms, inhabitants, and I will take a dip in it. But for general purpose, no, it's not my thing. So at around 15 years into the process of trying to mend my shattered self, I realized that it might be better to just let the shattered self incarnate as individuals through me. Not anybody in specific with like a previous name or title, but moods and complex thought forms that seem to be painful. Things of that nature, things that I cannot solve internally, moral dilemmas, things like that, and perhaps focus on meeting this person who represents this dilemma, and if they do not yet exist, perhaps seeking somebody who wishes to make them exist and helping them. And through that, I realized that the better part of solving the dilemma of the shattered self is to create children. And the very painful, absolutely opposite method is the one we use on this planet. That is, in terms of K-Pax understanding the sexual interaction. The proper method of making them is to seek out their energy in reality and supporting them, and they will adopt a person to you that will fit your criteria. You don't need to make the bebe yourself. You can, but it is in no way required. It is counterproductive in some cases. You can make it, but in some cases it is counterproductive. I would strongly support spiritual solutions to this dilemma. The physical ones tend to be painful. That is all I'll say. So it turned out that tuning in to the spirit of the moral dilemma, you can actually get the God who is behind that particular type of moral legal system. And most religions center around earth. So, for example, Taoism is the Chinese version, has a couple 100 million. But if you pick a fantasy that has a baseline to explain why the people in its current form on Earth represent different forms of the abstract, and why their abstract is more sizable but perhaps more diffuse than other religions because their thought does not center around Earth specifically, you can find a religion that is very unable to influence you unless it comes from high in their religion, but sizable in terms of Earth religions compared to what you can get on Earth. So, worshipping, for example, the God Emperor gives you a religion with 100,000 trillion inhabitants. But if somebody from that religion wants to help you, it has to come essentially from the God Emperor, noting that others in that religion will notice the help. So that is why, if you are in a place where you do not mind attention, you have prepared for it. Picking a religion where the religion's help has to come from very high in the religion, as in the Pope of the religion, the writers of the religion, instead of the priest there, has benefits and disadvantages. In my terms, the Chaos Undivided had a great deal of benefits as I was looking at a very oppressive society. Socialism is very repressive. The drive to be good is very strong. If you do not strive to be in what the society terms to be good, you are very much ostracized. If the society happens to be racist and you're not, you will be in a lot of trouble. Vice versa, if the society happens to not be racist and you are racist, you will be in a lot of trouble. That's what socialism is like. The other end is usually liberty, where you can, be anybody and be anywhere. There are specific domains that are inaccessible, and that is the life. But you can go to pretty much any point in the country and say, I will be there. The evidence of societal liberties is usually the amount of city-states. Small regions that are basically the consistency of their population, but are completely independent from the central government or as far as possible. City-states. If the US development of well, let's say Western development of zones of urban sensibilities continues, those will form the city-states of the new era. Because we're seeing, after the end of the Cold War, a collapse of previous societal norm, which was the Cold War. And that will take some generations. You could see it as collapse of the church power in the 9th century to like 13th century in northern Central Europe. Well, collapse is basically the wrong word, but the Viking domains of that era, when they started to go down and Germany started to turn basically to Christians and form the German kingdom, they had a lot of city-states, which the modern history terms as an insufficient government. You know, everybody was independent, there wasn't enough government. But once you learn what the historians believe is the best form of things to do, you can interpret real history based on what they're actually telling you. But to do that, you need to know what the teacher actually believes, which is why teachers should be pretty open about their beliefs, and schools should hire different opinions of teachers. They should be pretty open about their beliefs and try to help the student to understand how to automatically see the difference between what anybody sees and what the reality is in that particular field. Because the facts you can get, but it is difficult to get the real nitty gritty of what the different personalities are like. Knowing what the teacher thinks in terms of history and their true standing in history allows you to look at everybody in your real life in relation to that history teacher and see their appropriate stances in terms of that particular topic. Though studying every topic will break down humanity. I wouldn't do it. Making it completely mechanical, understanding everything is very bad. I would increase a great deal vocational training. By around 10, you should have your first vocational training job. It should be very light duty. But if by 10 you say, I want to be an astronaut, you should like be taken on a helicopter ride, you know what I mean? No, this will be in the future. Like, we will get you higher and higher and you will study it. You know, having the people run packages at the office. Can you take this cup of Joe to this room? Okay. You know, that particular type of society. Integrating everybody into the workforce, but making sure nobody's abused in the workforce. That requires openness about the nature of the workforce. Essentially, nothing else will help. Openness about who's hired and what they do. And I don't know if I can recommend cameras at the office everywhere, but perhaps, like, here is our stock feed of latest meeting. Bang. Like 2 times a month or something. You know what I mean? Because it's not very high value, but a lot of corporate work ends up being a lot of low value work doing repeatedly. That's how you build corporate base. I had 8 subscribers about 2 years ago. Now I have 43. So I'm building. It's work I can do. It's acceptable. Now, if I manage to do this drug withdrawal thing, which I'm going through, I will be able to fund a great deal of small things. One of the small things I will probably fund is time on leave, which I probably will translate into mining jobs. I have presented the ideas and options to a great many people in random discussions about feminists. And the end result seems to be that even the best coordinated security jobs are still hazards. So that comes to hygiene rules, as in, if I do not clean up my hygiene to a point where I would clean the apartment 8 hours a day, which is completely ludicrous. Why would I clean my astral for money for 8 hours a day? Is essentially what the thing is telling me. Because in terms of jobs, the security jobs can be determined to be cleaning jobs. It is most often the nature of them. And I'm thinking mining, because there have been a great deal in the storyline improvements in the mining capability. A lot of the storyline that focuses on, for example, the characters of the sci-fi universe, like Jake and Cisco, and Jake Cisco and Nog Enterprises, Jake Nog Enterprises, stuff like that. A lot of that stuff has been focused specifically on mining. So I'm thinking the guys who represent the actual sci-fi are telling me mining, and a lot of the random discussions are telling me mining. I have come to a point where almost nobody has a problem with the security jobs I'm offering. There is some discussion about a problem with them, but these are amongst discussions where the people have a problem with me anyway. So they're talking about things that bother them about me doing something at all. They have noted a preference for mining jobs, but I am not taking that much effort into taking the preferences of people who have a problem with me as a standard into consideration. I am taking it, but not as much. However, if it corresponds with something that seems to be for the greater good as well, I will take a great deal of notice. So if I go into Eve and I commit to mining, it will be low intensity work. I will have a main computer that I will do the normal things on, and a side computer that will have the mining interface. I will make about $5 to $10 an hour, so not much, but I will make enough to make it worthwhile. And because I have scouted out the region pretty well, I know where the local hotspots are and what the security change probabilities are and who inhabits my region and who has a starbase or previous industrial interest in the region. And one of them is Stark Heavy Industries. So just let you know. A corporation named by the players as Stark Heavy Industries had a starbase or some kind of industrial interest there. I looked at the system history, which is very interesting. So it's a system that has similar interests. And I used to produce some of my implant technology there. I was one of the system's main producer of implants. I don't know about main, but I was a producer. I did it for a while, but there was not much in it. It was very light income work as a singular source. I was looking for a single source of income and decided between either very high-end mining or very high-end security work, and then I decided to take a break to consider it. Been on a break for a while. Still considering it. High-end mining seems to produce more than Bitcoin mining, in my opinion. And I'm thinking in terms of probability of if I have a couple of trillion in my EVE account of that actually producing sufficient money in my real world account in terms of work put in to produce that couple of trillion in terms of Bitcoin mining, I would see my thing as having less work. It will require me to click the site interface a couple of times an hour. I will have to be consistently on because pirates. I will be randomly looking at the security screen, and if some battleship or something of that nature warps into the system, I will immediately warp out of the mining area because I'm a coward. One of the systems that I'm thinking for this particular purpose is very quiet, and it has a very large, very inexpensive, not market-worthy item that can be mined. It makes just enough at the market to get by, meaning that if I produce a very large quantity, I can actually ship it without problems. We'll start at the basic level. Right now, the main concern is getting the best mining gear for single character. Then I will look very carefully on if I do this on whether or not I need a other computer to do this, or I need to get a group together. Because at that point, I will have a powerful enough mining corporation to get perhaps 10 people working for me. I will have enough money in the game. So if I stake out that system and the connections from there on the single system road to the closest T connection with an actual trade center, I will make $50 a day. Still not much, but now we're talking about a source of income. It's not much, but it's something. Something. And of that, I will have to spend something along the lines of half, if I'm greedy, minimum in maintaining the corporation, because people will want better ships and skill upgrades and stuff like that. Just calculating how much there is in mineral worth and how few miners there are. Because I'm in a part of the area of the game that has very few other players. Because most players who play that game, if they play it for normal fighter action thing, do not stay in that particular security zone. And it does not have the base resources to make it worth for any corporation yet. But with current trends, we will see it becoming useful to like very basic mining corporations in about 10 years, based on current growth rates. So that would allow me to make 50 times, let's say 5 times 365 minus 75%. That's what it would allow me to make. If I get into it, that would be my path to Bitcoin mining. That would be one of the appropriate changes of the Emperor said. It would be interesting. So, mining. First, I need a very top of the line industrial miner, which I do not have the skills for. So, buying skill points is very, 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 very expensive, which means the basic method of making money in the game is actually buying 1 month of subscription after you have earned all the implants that make skill learning easier, and then spending all that time at least learning more skills. If you're lucky, after 1 month, you can sell the skill points you learned and get another month. That's how I believe it's done. So skill points, buying like what would take me half a year to learn right now would be like $150, but buying a half a year of time would be $150, doing which I'd make $150. That's the point. Then I would spend, if I made enough money at it, back into it to buy more game time. I have not made it yet because security missions are very time intensive. Not time intensive, work intensive. You have to do a lot of clicking. But security mining missions, you can do on a side computer. In fact, I might even show you. Steam Unlocker. On kaikkea mahdollista kuulee. Yksi syistä, minkä takia mä oon miettinyt, että mä tekisin tätä hilloa, niin se pystyisi ostamaan kaikki softat ja tietokoneet kaikki. Mä en viitti sitä noilla päihteillä tehdä, kun päihdekaupassa aina se, että sillä pitäisi tehdä just sen verran, että pystyy omat päihteet kustantaa ja se pitäisi olla ajanviittotapa. Sillä ei pitäisi pystyä tekemään rahaa. Se on päihdekaupin juttu. Sitten jos se lähtee tekemään sitä bling blingiä itselleen, niin se tulee kyllä kostautua, vaikka poliisi ei tekisi yhtään mitään. Se on ihan varma. Sen takia mä oon siitä mieltä, että huumekaupalla pitäisi tehdä niin paljon, että pystyy omat huumeet kustantamaan. Sen takia mä olen sillä lailla katoin. Kuituhamppu tai CVG kuulostaa aika hyvältä. THC Delta 9 ei kuulosta hyvältä. Mä oon miettinyt sitä Delta 8 ja Delta 10, kun Delta 9 on se, että jos siitä tehdään semmoinen 100% eroteltu muoto ja se pistetään polttoon, niin siitä ei tule mitään muuta kuin ihan hirveä paniikkikohtaus. Se on ihan universaali semmoinen asia, että siitä tulee vaan se. Se on kaikille ihmisille sama. Sitten taas jos tehdään semmoinen, että siinä on kaikki nämä CBD ja THC ilman Delta 9 THC, niin siitä tulee hyvin semmoinen jumaluttava. Siitä tulee semmoinen niin kuin hyvin vahva vaikutus. Mut siinä pitäisi olla ilmeisesti hyvin matala patentti. Sen takia se mua kiinnostaa. Ne on niin kuin miettinyt sitä, että miten se pitäisi se kasvi jalostaa, että siitä saadaan semmoinen, että se pitäisi olla niin kuin ihan oikeasti lääkemuoto, eikä vaan vitsinä. Ja ne on etsinyt sieltä ne, mitkä on assosioitu sillä, että me puhistetaan ihan täysin siitä kemikaalista ja lyödään semmoisena ihan puhtaana ihmiseen, niin aiheuttaa jotain epämukavaa. Ne on kaikki katsonut kaikkea, mitä ne verenpaineen nousut ja kaikki muut. Tämä aiheuttaa paniikkiä, tämä aiheuttaa sitä, että tulee paha olo ja yritettä on katsonut sillä, että mä siirtänyt ne pois siitä ja nostanut niiden määrät tilalle nyt muita. Jos se on nyt se, mitä mä luulen, että se on. Selitin sen sillaiselle myyjälle. Nyt katsotaan, mitä sieltä tulee. Jos sieltä tulee se, mitä sieltä tulee, niin se on niin vitun hyvä valtinta mulle, että ei vittu mitään. Sitten mä enää koske tähän katukauppaan. Sitten jos sieltä tulee jotain ihan paskaa, niin sitten mä todennäköisesti vaan ottaa itsellä selvää. Jos sieltä tulee jotain hyvää, niin sitten mä poltan ne loppuun, niin siksi lopetan sen röökin polton ja sitten ennen kuin ne loppuu, niin kokeilen sitä, että miten mä pystyn olemaan vaikka kuukauden ilman. Jätän sen säkin sinne hyllyn pohjalle ja venaan kuukauden. Sitten jos sen jälkeen tulee vielä semmoinen olla, että sitä voi ottaa, niin sitten vaan ottaa. Mä veikkaan, että sen kuukauden jälkeen, jos se on se säkin pohjalla, niin sinne ei tule semmoista olla, että sitä haluaa ottaa. On semmoinen olo. Viimeksi kun mä lähdin sieltä Texasista tulee tonne Tanskaan, niin silloin se ensimmäinen hiitti, kun sitä otti, niin oli kyllä vittu niin hyvä kokemus, ettei mitään. Laattasin vittu tunnin jossain 180 sykkeessä siellä vessassa, niin kaikki paikalliset heitti mut sinne kadulle, kun se sanoi, että siellä voi vittu käydä, mutta ottaa nyt siellä asumaan. Mulla oli vittu niin paala, ettei mitään vittu. Sitten kävelin semmoisen lähimmälle semmoisen, mikä näytti tasapainoiselta tolpalta siihen huumealueen ulkopuolelle katu yli ja nojasin siihen joku 2 tuntia ja välillä vilkaisen kännykästä, että ei ole vielä lennyt tuolla vittu. Olin vittu niin seis kuin ihminen voi olla, trippasin vittu niin päitä vittu. Oho, ja mä kuulin sen puheen sieltä jostain 50 metrin päästä sillä lailla, kun se oli ihan siinä vieressä. Mulla oli niin tarkka taistotyttö, että ei mitään. Oli ihan viitun kaameella. veikkaan, että sit jos mä oon kuukauden ilmaa huitessa sitä huivia, niin siitä tulee samanlainen olo ja sitten loppuun. Tai sitten se määrä on semmoinen, että sitä polttaa kuin puolikkaan jopan päivässä. Nyt tää menee sillä lailla, kun tässä on tää vitutusvaihe, niin tämä menee. Minä tulen tuotaan. Kanavaa asioita. Onko tää joku vittu 100 miljoonaa ohjelmaa alla? Mikä on Microsoft Host? Kyllä ainakin muistaakseni tää toimii. Näin sen sit mitään. Näin sen mitään. Taas yksi ihan kiikkoinen. Mulla on semmonen olo, että mä oon ollut tässä välissä vielä yksi läpi. Varmaan lähtenyt käymään jonnekin myynnissä johonkin. En nyt ihmettelisi. Eli siis jos mä menen sinne eläin takas ja alan tekee niitä mining-missioita, niin se pitäisi olla joku 300 miltsiä iskeen tunnessa. If meaning joo, missä lukuja vielä. Niin mitä arvioit? No! I'm not even the guys, but that's weird. Jotain tällaista. On näytti muotoilemaan tämmöisiä isoja ryhmiä.
This is going to be going over my favorite ship, probably one of my favorite ships, is the Orca, and it's solo, mining with the drones, right? Probably one of my favorite activities as far as mining is concerned. Now, obviously, this is not going to be the best yield that you get if you're like running a Hulk with boost or whatever, but if you're like me and you just like rolling out one ship and throwing some drones out and just kind of like putting it on a screen and letting it kind of do its thing, this is for you, right? So my vid hasn't changed a whole lot in recent years, more so with like the new compression changes in the siege module. I do still kind of run boost just in case I have someone agree with me, or if I want to bring an alt out, depending on what I want to do, just kind of helps me stay ready to go. But as you can see here, I'm going to run large drone, 2 large drone 2s, and then a large drone mining augmenter 1. And then you have your industrial core 2, and then I have my large asteroid ore compressor, and then I'll run 2 mining foremen, and then 1 shield burst, and then the drone link augmenter. As far as the charges, I usually run mining field laser field enhancement, and then laser optimization. I don't run preservation because with residue now, I just don't think, other than for coxes where you have to use crystals, I just don't slots, I just run large shield extender 2s, and then multi-spec 2s, and then a single survey scanner. You don't have to run a survey scanner, you can run anything else you want here, but I kind of like just running it, playing with numbers, since this is kind of a slow process. It's kind of like my fidget spinner. And then for the tank, rain work bulkhead 2, and then damage control, right? And then I'll send this, you can see everything. I'll run, depending on what area I'm in, I'll just run light combat drones. So in this bit, I have warrior 2s, and then I have the augmented mining drones. I carry extras just in case something happens to one of them. Because you can be out of grid a long time with compression now. So I don't want to have to stop my little semi-AFK mining just to if I lose a single augmented. So I carry an extra set. And as you can see here, with it simulated, you get, before the compression changes, before the siege module, right, you used to get 333 M3 every minute per drone. Now, if you siege, you actually get more. You get 340 per drone per minute, which is really good.
Oh.
And then, obviously now the Orca has its own, fuel bay.
Basic change is for compression.
To put our heavy water in.
There's also something else that was changed, but that seems to be the main change in the past
my
couple of
biggest
years.
goal was to get a Rorqual, do X-Cav, Siege, Drone Mine, High Yield, and all that. That's not really there's not an environment really that you can do that effectively in. But now you kind of.
Eli siis mielellään, kun mä mainasin viimeksi, muistaakseni Hulkilla. So I used to mine with a Hulk, I think, those large mining things. But the thing that ended up bothering me the most was that you couldn't store a lot on your ship. You would need a second ship or a cargo pod that you throw stuff in, and if you just threw stuff in, somebody could technically steal it. Like they could fly there and jack it, and then you'd have 15 minutes to hunt them down without any punishment or something. I can't recall the details, but it didn't seem like a good idea. So now the main change seems to be ore compression. So if it's maybe half an hour to visit a station, if you have a good mining ship. You mine with drones, you have a change of good combat drones. No spare in either drone section, because I mine in a section where the stuff would be at the station, and it's just for essentially getting to the station. Or if I really think I can take them on, launching the drones. And I think there's probably more than I can single-handedly mine in just within a very close warping distance of my primary station. So let's put it at 100 million an hour as an estimate. If I start to do mining instead of security, it would make sense in terms of my stance. Yeah, thank you for watching.